Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Mush. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson,
Hello.
and we are going to be talking about today Obi-Wan Kenobi, Season 1, Episode 4, or Chapter 4, whatever they call it now. They don't have a special title for these. So we're going to be talking about the fourth episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi today. If you are just joining us for the first time, welcome. We're going to be recapping everything, start to finish, and just generally reviewing the episode, giving our overall thoughts on it. If you are still new and you have not followed us on Twitter, at Tower Babblecast on Twitter, TOWERBABBLECAST, is how you're going to keep up with everything we do. We record this live every single Thursday following Obi-Wan Kenobi. For the length of Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're really just a specialty show. What do you call it? What do you call it? We just come out when there's a Star Wars show. We're there alongside it. That's our niche.
Yeah.
Hence the name. So
Limited series podcast.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yes, it's a limited series that goes along with the limited series. But also, we also review the ongoing series. So we've been doing The Mandalorian. We did The Bad Batch. We did Book of Boba Fett. Am I missing any?
No. We did the last season of the Clone Wars. Did you see that?
Yep, that's true.
So
we'll do
anything
Tales
you
of the
catch
Jedi.
On the small screen, hence the name.
And also the movies, if presumably.
Yeah.
Whenever
probably,
those come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, who are we kidding? Anyway, we do record this live, and if you want to join the show, you can. You can head over to Twitter, and you can find us there, live streaming there as well, but also on YouTube and on Twitch. Now, I do have to tell you that starting at the end of July, we will be going down to 2 multicasts instead of 3. So if you have a preference, whether it's Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, or maybe something else I'm not aware of, let me know, because we're going to have to drop one before the end of July. So that's just the reality, unless we want to pay for the service, which it's too expensive. So
yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Could we always drop the live feed on YouTube and then just put it up on YouTube? Or is that the same?
Yes, you could do that, but it's easier to just have it already on YouTube if you record it live and then it's just there.
That makes sense. Yeah,
so I like that.
Look, I don't know how these things work.
I love that it's on Twitter, but I don't know how much engagement we actually get on the Twitter live stream. But so that might be true. Where we drop. I don't know. Twitch is a great environment. I love YouTube, and I love Twitter. These are my 3 favorites. If I could turn them all on, I'd even turn on the Facebook pages, and we could be live there too. But it is what it is. Anyway, enough behind the scenes housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get into this episode. This, like I said, is the 4th episode. It's runtime only 38 minutes. And
yeah, it was a short one.
This, although nice when I'm recapping it, so I don't have to watch a full episode to rewatch to take my notes and all that kind of stuff. But annoying when you consider there's only 6 episodes for the season, right? Limited series, and one of them is only 32 minutes by the time you get to credits, which doesn't even include the opening stuff. So it's probably closer to just like a solid 30 minutes of actual content, which is not very much. That's like a animated episode, like the Bad Batch is like that long. So yeah. So that just bugs me a little bit. Not a game changer at all, but just something that kind of irks me.
I do hope the other ones are longer. There's only 2 left.
Yeah, there's only 2 left already. Exactly.
Yeah, so hopefully they're long ones. It feels so weird that it's so short. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just crazy that it's only 6 episodes, because it just feels like it should be all summer, but it's only 6 weeks. Not even 6 weeks, because they dropped 2 at once.
When is Bad Batch coming back? Do we know?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's this summer too. So I think we'll get more Star Wars stuff pretty soon.
Fair enough.
If you're looking for something to tie you over after Obi-Wan, the Captain Marvel series just dropped. Also, not Star Wars, obviously, but Marvel related. Watch the first episode. Pretty good. So that's something for you if you only have one streaming service. Also, The Boys season 3 very good so far.
Ooh, big fan of that show so far. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying that. Lots to watch, but we're here to talk about Obi-Wan. So, as
Yes.
always, this episode is directed by Deborah Chow, as the whole season is. Written by Joby Harold, Hannah Friedman, based on Star Wars by George Lucas, of course. What was your, before I reveal my takeaway on this episode, what was your initial thoughts on this one, Rachel?
Okay. Other than it being like a little too short for my liking,
Mm-hmm.
it felt a little. I don't know how else to say it other than just like quick.
Yeah,
And
it's like
like
we're
I know
in,
it's
we're
just
out,
another way
and
of just
bye.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it's just another way of saying like short, but it seems like, and I
Rushed,
get that
maybe?
they don't have a lot of time. Yeah, a little rushed. I get it that they don't have a ton of episodes to go with, but it feels like, but at the same time, maybe we wouldn't want this whole sequence to be drawn out, but it's just it to me it was kind of funny how they talk about like, oh, this base is impenetrable and no one's ever done it, and then they're just like in and out immediately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess
So
that they make it seem like that was intentional on purpose. Oh, we let them escape.
right,
They
yes,
always
yes,
say that,
yes.
and I always feel like that's just an excuse. Like, sure, you let them
Always,
escape,
yeah.
but like, did you mean for them to escape in that way? So
Mm-hmm.
easily? Maybe not.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, but there are lots of parts that I liked, and there's a lot of parts that I got really excited about, and parts that made me tear up. So,
really, I didn't get. Okay, so I'll just say that this episode really didn't punch for me, didn't land for me
okay.
because I don't know. I watched the first episode, like the first time I watched it. Um, I had already had a few beers, so I was like not as maybe engaged as I had been for
Gotcha.
previous episodes. But rewatch. So I'm like, I come out of it, I'm like, oh, that was a little underwhelming, and again felt really quick. And then I rewatched today, and I'm hadn't had any beers, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm taking it all in, analyzing a little bit more, and I still just like does not land for me. I think
Okay.
rushed is a part of it. This kind of final sequence, basically the whole chunk of the episode takes place on the Fortress Inquisitorius, and I think that would be would work way better if we'd had a little bit more time to kind of sit with the fallout from last week. Right, we had
Right.
this
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool encounter with Vader. He's kind of left burnt, and then he just like it just quick flashes. He's in the back to tank. He's out of the back to tank, and then boom, he's on his way. And it
Yeah.
just feels
Yeah.
it's like let the episode breathe. I had been giving the show credit for actually the opposite, which is that they were letting the scenes breathe. There was these long extended dialogue sequences and sequences of kind of reflection and stuff with Obi-Wan. But in this episode, there's none of that. It's just action, action, action. And though the action's cool, it lacks any punch because both the stakes are low because the main characters involved are Leia and Obi-Wan. They can't die here,
Of
right?
course. Of course. Yeah.
Which I'm not gonna like hammer that on the show because that's just the reality of a prequel like this. It's just like you have to find stakes in other ways, okay?
Yeah. Of
And
course.
I don't think this episode did a very good job of finding stakes in other ways to make this episode seem compelling because even every time Tala was confronted, it was kind of she didn't really ever feel like she was in a big danger either,
Hmm.
and that's I feel like is a big missed opportunity for me.
There were definitely a few times where I was like, "Oh, like, is this where
Yeah, but
There
she
was
gets
definitely a
out
few
so
times that,
easy.
yeah, for sure. There's definitely a few times where I was a little bit thinking like, okay, maybe they're actually gonna like kill her this episode. There was a few parts where I kind of thought that might happen.
That would have
Um,
been that would have had some impact, because she
yeah,
had saved them last episode. She's sticking
yes,
her neck
yes.
out here. Like there's that sequence early on where he's like, "Is your cover still intact?" And she's like, "I don't know. I guess we'll find out." It's like you
Mm-hmm.
landed there and your cover's not intact. She'd be arrested immediately. So it's like
Right. Yes.
that's a pretty big risk, but it all. I just feel like there's knowing the show has to know that the stakes with Leia and Obi-Wan are non-existent. So
Right.
you need to pull it in from other places, and they just chose not to here. So I find that being said, someone does die, but that person was literally had one line of dialogue before before they died. So it's like, who? I don't
Yeah.
know this person. I mean, no offense. I do not care about you as a character. You need to do more work as a show to make me care about a character before you kill them off. If you expect me to have some sort of emotional reaction to that.
I would agree with that. Yes. Yeah.
But otherwise, I think there is some cool stuff in there. I think, there's obviously the lightsaber stuff is cool.
I love the way the lightsaber looks. I really like the way it looks in this show. I'm a big fan of it. Like the more I see it, the more I'm just like, I just get so excited anytime I see Obi-Wan using his
Yeah,
lightsaber.
I
I'm
mean,
just like, oh yeah! Like I
he
just get
uses it
so
so
pumped.
sparingly too, which is
Yeah.
so. Even at the end of the episode, he doesn't use it, which is kind of dumb. It's like you're surrounded by stormtroopers and you're escaping the base, and you've got Leia with you. It's like, why aren't you pull it? And you have another Jedi, like, you have the Inquisitor coming at you with a lightsaber. Why aren't you using your lightsaber here? Why are you shooting stormtroopers? I don't understand that. That
I
was
mean,
weird to me.
obviously, like blasters are more of a ranged weapon, so like you can get them from farther away. Like lightsaber, you obviously have to be within like
That
6
didn't
feet.
stop him before. He was
I get
deflecting
that.
blasters
No,
all
right, the
over the place.
deflecting. You're right there. Like he could have been. I want to see him do both. I want to see him like lightsaber one hand and then shooting his gun in the other hand.
Yes,
Or shooting his blaster. In the other hand.
like Ezra.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
Ezra's
yeah.
lightsaber was also a
No,
blaster.
Ezra's. Yes, exactly. It started out as a blaster because he was more comfortable with that, and then
Right.
as he gets more comfortable with his lightsaber, eventually the blaster is gone off that. But
Is
yeah,
that true? I don't
so.
remember. I feel like when
When
Kanan uses his lightsaber, he uses Ezra's lightsaber to take out the Inquisitor, right? And he's got two lightsabers, and one of them is Ezra's, and he's like shooting him with the lightsaber blaster, and also using his, and that's how he takes him out.
I don't know. There is,
but I
yeah,
don't
there
remember
is
if later in
some
the series
point
that
though
changed.
that Ezra changes it because
Okay.
I think it breaks or something happens, and then when he rebuilds it, it's just a regular lightsaber.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But anyways,
Anyway, so other things I liked about the episode, I liked
Yeah.
the connections to the video game, Jedi Fallen Order. There's
Yep.
obviously some really cool stuff there. There's we'll get to it. Let's just get in. Let's go through the episode a little bit by bit here. So we start the episode. Actually, before we even get into that, I have to back up even further because we didn't do this at the first episode, which I had been doing for all the previous series that we've been covering, which is talking about the little Star Wars intro with all the little helmets.
Oh,
in it.
yes. This
and
one was this one
droids.
different than the other ones
Yeah.
that we've seen on the show?
Yeah.
Okay, I noticed. See, and I don't really notice those things. And I was like, I think this intro mask thing or faces was different than the other ones of the series so far.
It was, and it's weird that it changed in the middle of the season. But
yeah.
So that's what made me think. So here's the thing: the beginning of the season, it was R2D2, a Sith trooper, BB-8, the Armorer, a mouse droid, Kylo Ren, Mando, 3PO, and Vader. Okay,
Right.
And then this episode, they changed it. It's the loader droid, whatever. We got its name, but I forgot its name already. A weird-looking gonk droid, 3PO, Kylo Ren, a rebel helmet, R2, Mando again, Leia's droid Lola, and then Vader.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it was. I was like, there's definitely more like droids in this one.
It's really weird. Yeah.
The previous ones.
To me, it's an odd choice to change in the middle of the season. It's like, why don't you just bring that out late? I mean, I guess they wanted to maybe get Lola in there, but Lola was introduced in like the first episode, so like I don't know why we couldn't have started with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we wouldn't have known what it was before. It's weird. Anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that before we moved on.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ben is dreaming. I mean, Obi-Wan he's like in like I don't know if you describe it. He's like in shock. That's how we would describe it. He's in shock.
Yes,
he's being transported to Jabim, and he's being taken on a ship. There's these kind of flashbacks from last week of the fight with Vader, and there's these lines from Vader. They reused the one that I thought was the lamest one, which was, "You should have killed me when you had the chance." And then also flashbacks, like I said, from last week. So they get put into the bacta tank, and then you get these like cross shots of Obi-Wan in the bacta tank with Vader also in his bacta tank, to kind of give you that connective piece.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have got it. I feel like the show could have been a little bit more subtle with that and just been like showing us the burns on Obi-Wan would have been enough for us to be able to connect. Like, oh yeah, that's like Vader. I feel like I could have connected that dot without them having to like literally cut the two together because Vader, nothing happens with Vader at that point. It's just we're just cutting to him in his tank and that's it. And then we
Okay,
don't see him
see,
again till later.
for me, I thought that they were kind of doing that to show that almost like they were both going through what had just
You're thinking
happened
about it.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, Obi-Wan's kind of almost replaying what has happened, and then like same thing, Vader's also doing that, but they're doing it in different ways. Like Obi-Wan's is a little bit more of a replaying something because of more like
Right.
PTSD or because of being scared, but like Vader's more like angry about how this encounter went. So that's kind of
Well,
what I took from that. But yeah, maybe I was just, a little too deep into.
Vader's always angry, and so I don't
Yeah.
know if
Yeah.
he would be angry. I feel like that went exactly how he would have wanted, right?
Mm.
Other than the way it ended with him escaping in some really lame way.
Right. Yes.
It went exactly how it couldn't have gone better for him, I guess, unless you consider that he doesn't feel like Obi-Wan's kind of back to his. It didn't feel like it was a fair fight. Maybe that's what's
Yeah, that's
pissing him
kind of
off.
what I'm getting at. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I could see that. So Obi-Wan wakes up, he jumps out of his back to tank, and he's first thing he says is, "Where's Leia?" And hard cut to the Fortress Inquisitorius, which I always like when they do that type of cut. And then
Yes.
we have
Yes.
Reva interrogating her basically, and most of this episode is Reva interrogating Leia, and it's so weird because it's treated like, and even my girlfriend mentioned this, which is like she's like, is she like interrogating this 10-year-old girl? And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I guess technically,
Yeah.
because it's treated as if it's like any older interrogation. She doesn't seem to be using really any other type of tactics. There's one scene where she's like, listen, you just tell me where they are. This will be all over for you, right? That's like the only time it seems
Right.
like she's trying something that would work for a 10-year-old. But the rest of the time, she's like, tell me where they are. I need to know.
Yeah.
Like it's all these like smashing the table, all this stuff. It's like, man, this is a 10-year-old girl. It looks weird to me. Like the visual of it is funny to me,
Right.
and not in
Yes.
a good way.
Yes. Yeah, it's like she's a
Um,
literal child. Like she's not
yeah,
necessarily gonna. I mean, very obviously a tough kid. She's not gonna respond. She's not responding
right.
the same way that like a normal 10-year-old would probably just be bawling and upset.
Yeah, I mean,
Even so,
I
she's like,
feel like even if you did get information out of a 10-year-old after berating them, I feel like it's not really going to be good intel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably not.
Like, is that really you're going to torture this 10-year-old child? Because that's also what happens. She takes her to the torture chair, and
Yeah.
you're going to torture this 10-year-old kid, and that's going to give you some sort of good intel. Give me a break. She's not doing
Yeah.
a very
No.
good job. Like, she's failing at her job in that point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, but Reva also, but the important thing is though that Reva is lying to her. She says that Obi-Wan is dead. And it's not clear if Leia believes her or not. I think she doesn't want to believe her, but
Right. Yeah. She
think,
looks pretty choked. Like she obviously doesn't
yeah,
start crying or anything, but she
yeah,
looks sad. And man, it's even like to me kind of crazy how Leia's even like, I want like tell me how he died. Like I want to know how he died.
right.
And it's like, oh, like
Do
that
10-year-olds even
seems pretty hard.
can 10-year-olds even grasp that concept? I don't
Uh,
even.
yeah, they can. I don't think they would
They're not
ask things
supposed
like
to.
that.
They're not.
Yeah,
They're
like
not.
it's like I
Yeah.
have a nephew who's 10, but that's just obviously not the kind of thing that they ask. But I mean, it's a different world. Like
Yeah. 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 Well, I
and
mean,
it's
she says it right at the beginning. She's like, "I am a princess of Alderaan. You can't keep
yeah.
me here." Like she
Yeah.
knows she's obviously like playing older than her 10-year-old self. So that's
Yes, of
interesting.
course.
So we cut back to Obi-Wan and we meet Roken, and this guy Roken, played by what's his name here? Hold on one second, if I can find his picture on IMDb. Which I can't now, of course. Oh yeah, O'Shea Jackson Jr. He is the son of Ice Cube.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He's the son of Ice
Okay.
Cube,
Nice.
and his first acting role was in Straight Outta Compton, but he's done other stuff since. And I thought he was pretty good here in terms of his performance. Doesn't really have a lot to
Mm-hmm.
do. None of these new characters we meet have a lot to do. But this guy, he at least seems interesting. He doesn't want Obi-Wan around because he's too high profile, right? He's bringing too much attention to them.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, and he's kind of seems to be in charge of this whole path idea, right? He's like he says everything runs out of here. I can't shut it down, right? Which is a interesting thing, which means obviously that it's a kind of the nexus, and that's where they're gonna. And now that the Inquisitors know where they are, they're definitely gonna get shut down, or at least they'll
Oh, absolutely.
try to take it, at least try to shut him down, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is he calls Ben Obi-Wan, he calls him General.
Mm-hmm.
And at the first time I watched it, I was like, did he call him General? I didn't rewind it. And then this time I was like, oh yeah, he did. So that's really interesting. I think it little lines of dialogue like that, including, by the way, the line where every kid who can float a rock between here and Coruscant is under is under threat. Great line.
Yes, yes.
But just calling him General really does some world building here and some character building for this person, because it means that he was very much involved or alive and aware of the goings on of the Clone Wars, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't call Obi-Wan General Kenobi unless you were referencing the Clone Wars. That was the only time he was a general, right?
Yes, so exactly.
And he says he was married to a Force-sensitive person. It's not clear whether or not that person was a Jedi or not, although I get the impression that they probably were. And that even in and of itself is interesting. I'm like, ooh, tell me more. I want to know more about this. That's some sort of forbidden relationship.
Me too.
Very cool. But I just like that it gives us just enough information for him to be interesting. That's kind of what the original series did so well. It just gives you enough information to be interesting without spilling all the beans. And I would be happy to see them explore this character more. I assume he'll be back for more of the series. What did you make of Roken and his introduction?
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I liked him like right away. And again, when he called him General, that just kind of gives you like I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of gets you in the feels a little bit, because referencing General Kenobi, it's like, oh man, like he, you get that, because he's not the same person anymore. Like he's not General Kenobi, and it's still that kind of. Every time I see him in this show, he's just beaten up and he's beaten down, and it's just sad. So whenever we get that little homage to like Clone Wars Obi-Wan, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And, I was also very intrigued about he's saying he's married to someone who's Force sensitive. To me, I'm assuming that would have happened because it's about 10 years after the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed it was like after the Clone Wars he was with someone or married someone, but just because Jedi were so like set in their ways about not forming attachments during the Clone Wars, that I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I don't know. I mean, that's why it's so interesting, because it's like either they had some sort of secret relationship. They said that they tried to keep it secret, right? That was the one thing, right? And they're like, and the Inquisitors still found them. It's also not clear if she's dead. Like they say that she was taken, right? Maybe not necessarily dead. So that's interesting. Yes. I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, and I hope they'll peel back the layers on it. One thing you mentioned, the Clone Wars, and I think one thing we were excited about, or potentially excited about, because we didn't know for sure. About this series going in, was like the opportunity with Hayden Christensen coming back as Darth Vader was to do some flashbacks and be like, show us some more time to get more, different times together that they had during the Clone Wars. It wouldn't even have to be reenactments of episodes or scenes from the series. It could have been completely new things that we hadn't seen before, of them in their, their Clone Wars style, costumes, and maybe
I would love to see that live action.
Right? I mean, me too. Right, there's a lot of really cool stuff there. Like, all the clones would look way better. You could use the live action ones now that you have them. You could, everything would look great. You would really just bring the Clone Wars to life in a really interesting way if you wanted to do that. And they actually had an opportunity, I think, in this episode when he was in the Bacta tank, kind of like with what am I thinking? Not Mando, but Boba Fett. Kind of like with Boba Fett, where he was kind of having those flashbacks when he was in his Bacta tank. He was even doing flashbacks already, but just to last episode, which feels like a waste because we just saw it. last
Right,
week.
yeah.
But
That would have been cool, you're right. But I wonder if too many people have been like, they just did that in Boba Fett, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why they didn't. But you're right, that would have been
yeah,
cool to see some like Clone Wars flashbacks and then see Anakin when they were like best buds and then to see him as Vader now, like would have been kind of cool.
well, right, and they even kind of set it up where it's like they're both thinking about something in their own back tanks. A flashback to the Clone Wars would have been a great opportunity there.
Yeah,
It
it would
wouldn't
have
even
been.
have to have been. It wouldn't have to even been them necessarily. It's like, oh, this is them dreaming. It could have been literally just a flashback to provide additional context or whatever. Now, it might not have fit into the kind of the way this episode was structured, and I understand that. That being said, with only 2 episodes left, you're running out of opportunities to use Hayden in that way. I mean, of course, you could always bring him back for other things. He's
Right.
already said that he would love to do a Vader series, and they're kind of teasing the idea of maybe a season 2 of Obi-Wan and what that might look like. I don't know. We'll speculate that at the end of the season, but it just seems like so far that it's been a missed opportunity, and just because that one general line really made me think of that. So they are like, I don't know. Obi-Wan does the worst job convincing someone ever. He's like, you don't understand what the Empire can do, and then he's like, I know exactly what the Empire can do. Okay, I'll help you.
Yeah, right. I know.
It's
I
like
thought that was so
weird.
funny too. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Like, yeah, I found that dialogue a little bit clunky.
It was very clunky. Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I think you could have spent a little bit more time, just a tad, just a touch.
You don't have to. The episode doesn't have to come in at 30 minits flat. You could have spent an extra 2 minutes fleshing out this dynamic a little bit more, so to make that interaction a little bit more interesting.
Well, and that's all it would have taken is to just reiterate to him, like, okay, like if you know what the Empire can do, then like don't let them do it to
Right,
this
like
little
let's
girl.
dive deeper into this, right? So
yeah, it's like she's 10, she's a little girl. Like we can't let them do to her what they've been doing to everybody else.
Yeah,
and
like
then
they basically
to any normal person would be like, oh, okay, yeah, like you're right.
Yeah, they basically try to have their cake and eat it too here with like him being like, no, it's too dangerous, I won't do it, and then reluctantly come around and being like, okay, you have my help, you know. And it's like, but no, instead they do it in like 2 sentences, and it's like it's very rushed. It just doesn't fit right. Anyway, so they do a classic Star Wars plan on a hologram, right?
I thought that hologram looked really good. I don't know.
It did look really good.
I was like, oh, I'm like, that looks really sharp. It almost looks 3D on my own TV. Like, coming right at me.
For all the Ks, 4 of them at least.
I don't have a 4K TV, but it still looked really good on my regular
speaking of,
TV.
Remember that TV I told you that I won from work? And I was like,
Yes,
oh, it doesn't do 4K. It does do 4K, turns out.
Oh my God. You're such a complainer. Yeah, for anyone listening, Julian was complaining that he won a 70-inch TV. Hey, no, he was complaining. He's like, but it's not 4K though. And I was like texting him and I'm like, oh, poor boy. His massive free TV isn't in 4K.
It was actually 75 inches. But
yeah, I hate
yeah, anyway, all I'm saying is I'm going to have to rewatch all the Star Wars movies at the cabin now that they have that there. So
yeah.
Yes, that would be fun. Yes. So they're planning on the hologram. We learn a couple things, and I'm not clear if we knew these things already, but it's interesting regardless. So we find out that the Fortress Inquisitorius is on a water moon in the Mustafar system. So interesting because they call it Vader's system, which is cool.
I like
kind
that.
Of like known
that's Vader's
to be
system.
that.
I'm like, oh, he gets a whole system? Cool.
Yeah,
which makes sense. And like that makes me feel like it's just so like, I don't know. I love when they explain like territories of entire like space like that, because space is so huge.
Maps.
Like to
I
us,
want more maps.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, that's Hutt territory, or this is, but when you're like, oh, that's like Vader's, I'm like, oh, system. He has a whole system. I'm like, that's pretty cool. That he's like that threatening. That it's just
having his own planet's pretty cool too, if you think about it. But
oh yeah, everything is just like he's I'm like, man, that's not even just his own planet. He has his entire planetary system that people are too scared to even get into.
It's dope. So they're like, yeah, okay, so it makes sense that they would build the Fortress Inquisitorius so close to Vader's home base. Right? Yeah. So he's nearby. Yeah. That makes sense. And so he could get there and just like, pop over there for the afternoon if he needed to. And they're like, oh, no, is Vader there? He's like, no, we think our intel says he's on his ship, but he's nearby. So that's interesting. So they're kind of like immediately already sidelining Vader in this case.
Yeah.
And also, here's the other thing that's been odd for me. No, we haven't once heard... Has anyone even referenced or mentioned the Emperor? I don't even
I guess no, not yet. But I do know that this was like Vader's whole task and his whole thing. So like the Emperor wasn't really
He had other
involved
he had other things to worry
so
about,
much.
I guess.
Yeah, like he wasn't so much involved in this because he was basically just like, okay, yeah, go hunt them all now. Hunt them
Right.
all, hunt all the Jedi's down. And yeah, so I don't think he's super involved in this. And I think during this time Vader was also doing some other like things that he wasn't supposed to be.
Right.
Um, yeah, so because I'm pretty sure he gets beaten up by Palpatine. Like this is like, in comics and books and stuff that
Right.
he gets tortured a bit by Palpatine for doing things that he wasn't supposed to be.
Right. Well, anyway, it's cool. So he's been sidelined here a bit. He's doing other stuff. Who knows? Maybe it's really awesome stuff. We'll just never know.
Mhm.
And or maybe we'll find out in a comic book later. And we meet Sully and Wade. These are one of these characters dies. Spoilers. Um, uh, I like them enough, but we don't know anything about them, so there's really nothing to say.
Right.
You know,
And I
literally
like I don't
nothing
want to
about them.
yeah, I don't want to say this, but like it would have had a little bit more I don't know how you say it.
Gravitas.
Yeah, if it was the other guy who died, like the one we just met that we had this whole dialogue with
Oh
about his
yeah,
wife
hundred
and like it would
percent.
and not that I'm saying I want him to die because I like his character and I would like to hear more about him, but if he were to have been the one that died, that would have had a little bit more
Well,
weight to
right,
it.
or Tala. You know, either of these characters that
Yes,
are
yes.
new but we have a little bit of background on, um,
Yeah.
would work better in a character death. And I think
Mhm.
that the show thinks that we care more about the death of, I don't even know which one died. Let's see here.
Wade.
Which Wade? Yeah,
Wade dies.
yeah. So
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. It thinks that I think I that I care. I'm telling the show that I do not. Right now, I do not care. I don't
It
care that he
hears you.
died. Yeah, whatever. Um, but another thing that's cool is like they're like, I don't see any shields. Obi-Wan says here. And he's like, yeah, that's because they assume no one would be crazy enough to come. But like, also,
Yeah.
you should probably have shields. You know, but whatever.
Yeah. You would think, but
Yeah.
I get it. This is like that really arrogant time of the Empire where they're like, we
Yes.
are the end all be all and we hunt you and no one comes after us. Like you're
Right.
scared of us. So
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get
That
why.
makes
It's just
sense.
that pompous that they feel like they don't need it.
It's cool also that it's on a water moon, and then you have Mustafar, which is like a
I was gonna
lava
say that
planet.
too.
So you got these
I
like
was like,
cool
I'm pretty sure
opposites.
Mustafar doesn't have shields either.
Yeah, well, it used to, and then they turned them off, and that's what happened with all like that's how that structure falls apart during Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight. Remember? They like
Right.
damage
Yes,
the
yes,
system, and then
yes.
the shields turn off, and then the lava starts to destroy everything.
Yes,
Um,
right.
they also mentioned that they have 247s in the hangar, and of course, for the big Star Wars fans, as soon as they heard T47s, they were like, "Oh, the snow speeders!" Right? I did not
Oh, that's
hit.
what those were.
I did
Okay.
not make that connection until they actually showed up on screen later in the episode. But I also like that they talk about how the T47s were made for like towing sewage, or like they're not. It's like that's not what they're for, right? And
Right.
which really makes you like, okay, you think back to Empire Strikes Back, and it's like, oh, they really are just any ship they can get, and they did say that they had a hard time converting them into adapting to the cold or whatever. So I think that's really cool, little piece of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
connective tissue there. Although that being said, I don't think they looked that great later in the episode. So anyway, we'll get to that when we get there. So Tala and Obi-Wan agree that they're going to go in alone. It's like, oh, it's too dangerous. We'll go in alone. Tala's got her cover. And then they use Tala's ship, which is I don't think I've ever seen a ship like that before. It's a pretty cool ship, like Imperial design with like the folding wings and stuff. It's cool.
Oh yeah, I always like their ships. They do look. I don't know. That's one thing I'll give the Imperials and the Empire. They
Oh
always have
yeah,
pretty cool looking ships.
they have the coolest stuff. The bad guys always have the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
That's always been true. Why do you think people dress up as stormtroopers? Not because they want to be space fascists. It's because they want
Yeah.
to look cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, though I'm sure
Space
there's some that want to
fascists.
be space fascists, but
Oh
those
my god,
those
that's
people aren't cool.
amazing.
So we get Obi-Wan as they're approaching the base, struggling with trying to use the Force, just trying to like move like a communicator or something. And he's kind of sad. He's a little down on himself. most of the season is him feeling sorry for himself, and I think
I
whenever
wouldn't
he
say
is,
it's him feeling sorry for
oh my god,
himself.
100%, 100%.
You think? I don't know. Um, I feel like Obi-Wan is too, I don't know what the word is, too selfless to feel sorry for himself. I think he's just sorry in general, I
Oh, I
would
don't know. I
say.
think after all the stuff that happens, I think it's
I don't
clear that
know.
he is very emotionally damaged by the events of
Oh,
Order
yes.
66
Yeah.
and everything that happens before and immediately before and after. Um,
Yeah.
I think he blames himself for a lot of that stuff, and I
Yeah,
think
that's fair.
100% he's 100% down on himself. He can't use the Force. He's disconnected,
Mhm.
and he's basically being a big mopey baby. And it's like, okay, and it's understandable that like I can even be like, okay, that makes sense, right? I
Yeah, I
think
mean, yeah.
that whenever he does eventually commune with Qui-Gon, because it will happen, or at least it
Yes,
better
I
happen
think
in
it'll
this
be
series, and hopefully next week.
yes. Yes, yes,
That
yes.
I think the big lesson that Qui-Gon's going to impart on him is stop feeling sorry for yourself. You know,
Yeah,
that
I think so
doesn't
too.
change anything. It's not helping anyone. You know,
Right, right.
um, and let yourself let the Force back in. I think that's going to be the main message, but we'll see when we get to it. What do you think Qui-Gon's going to say to him?
Uh, I feel like it will be something like that. It's gonna be, like it's gotta be that just that good Liam Neeson
Yeah, but if it's
dad.
the yeah, I guess
Yeah.
like if it is just like him being like, well, the Force moves in mysterious ways and all that, it's like
No, no,
that's
no.
lame as shit. Yeah, no
I
way.
don't think it'll be that. I think it's gonna be a little bit more. It's gonna be a little bit more substantial than that. But it's got to be
Yeah.
something that encourages Obi-Wan to go at least get back to his normal self again, right? Or something
Hmm.
close to his normal self again.
Well, it has to. Yeah, he has to feel connected to something greater. I think right now
Yes, exactly.
doesn't necessarily feel that way. So I'm excited for that. If it doesn't come, it's going to be one of the biggest like head fakes of all time, and it's like
Yeah.
that would really suck. So Riva is talking to Leia about safe houses. She's talking about the path. Again, continuing to interrogate this 10-year-old child who I don't think she suspects is a Jedi, so I don't know why she would know all this additional information. Um, she asks about how Ben died. You mentioned before, Leia does. But what's interesting here is that Riva blames the people that Ben was like, the people that he was working with, Tala and the others. It's like, yeah, they left him to die and all that kind of stuff, which is also another lie.
Right.
The
Well,
thing with
that's just such a imperial thing to do is to like
yes,
they're taking the thing that is has hurt you and that you're like upset about and then they're going to try and make you turn on your own people
yes, classic
because of it.
Empire move.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, your friends let that happen. They didn't even care. They left him to die. So like why even bother protecting them? Like they're trying to use that
Right.
anger and that hurt to get what they want, which is what they've always done.
Well, and Leia doesn't seem to be falling for it. And
No.
there is a great thread on Twitter that I read by Brian Young. He's a like Star Wars uh, journalist, I guess we would call him. Anyway,
Oh, cool.
he's on a
Okay.
podcast I listened to, and his thread was retweeted by Ryan Johnson. So that'll get if that gives you any indication of whether or
Ooh.
not it's any good. But he talks about how the one of the criticisms of Episode 8 is like Leia using the Force to save herself after Kylo blows up the ship, right?
Right.
And his argument is that Leia is seen using the Force in one way or another in every single movie that she appears in some way or another.
Right.
And I think you might have to stretch things a little bit in certain places, but like not very much, I don't think. And then by later in the stuff, it's like not even a stretch at all. Like she 100% can sense things and feel things, and I think her specifically in these scenarios, I think she can see right through Riva, right, when she's
Oh,
lying
I
to
think
her.
she can.
And I
Yeah,
think that part of that is
absolutely.
the Force giving her some of that additional
I
kind
think
of
so. Because she could sense the same thing with like Obi-Wan, that he was holding
yeah,
back, that he wasn't telling her something. And I think she's like very good at that. I don't know what you call it, intuitive or that's
right,
kind of like one of her little force abilities
yes,
as a kid.
intuition
Like
for
yeah,
sure.
she's not making things float, but she's when it comes to
She
people and
could if she
reading
wanted to.
people. Oh,
if
I'm
she
sure
knew
she
how
could.
to,
Yeah.
she would be
That's
able
the
to.
one thing that I'm interested about with this interrogation because, I'm sure we're going to get to it obviously, but when Riva is trying to do that Sith thing where they just try and get into your mind the
Steal
same way
your
Kylo does it
information.
to,
Yes.
yeah, where like Kylo does it to Rey and Rey's resisting. It's the same thing. Like Riva's trying to do it to Leia and Leia's resisting. And you would
Yeah.
think that Riva would connect that she's force sensitive
Well,
because,
I was wondering that too. So there's two possibilities in my mind for that, which is that
yeah.
one is that she does connect that dot. Riva, smart lady, she's like, oh, you know what? She maybe is force sensitive, and then in that case, Obi-Wan's gonna have to kill her before she can reveal that information to anyone else, right?
Right. Yes.
So that's one angle. The other angle is that she's just like strong-willed, right? I think we've
Right.
seen
Yeah.
that in the past where the strong-willed people, or even Watto can't, Jedi mind tricks don't work. Well, you tried to wave your,
Yeah,
well, you wave your
right.
hand around like some sort of Jedi,
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I love Watto. He's just the funniest slave owner ever.
yeah.
But oh, by the way, have you seen this meme of this Ewan McGregor commercial where it's like, you ever are you you'll never regret things you didn't buy, but you'll regret places you didn't go. Have you seen that commercial before?
Yeah, it's like Trivago or something,
Yeah,
right?
or something like that.
Expedia,
And
yeah.
yeah, so they use that clip and they're like, you'll never regret things you didn't purchase. And then the next picture is of Anakin's mom. And it's like,
Oh no.
that's the funniest meme. That's just the funniest thing to me. The memes are just too good.
Oh dear. But fuck.
Anyway,
But yeah,
so
you're right. Like obviously Reva, if she hasn't put it together, there's no way she tells Vader because if Vader knew that Leia was force sensitive, like there would have been a way different reaction with her in like episode 4, like you know what I mean? It just would have been different because he would have kept that knowledge of like, okay, Princess Leia of Alderaan is force
well,
sensitive.
and also it's unclear what Vader's thoughts are on the whole concept of kidnapping Leia, because he doesn't know that that she's his daughter, right?
No, of course
so
not.
To him, she's just the princess of Alderaan, so he might not care about the politics of it, right?
No,
just
I don't
like,
think he does.
Ends justify the means, but like, I bet you other parts of the Empire care that they kidnapped the daughter of the King of Alderaan or whatever.
Oh, probably. So, and that could be part of this thing too, where it's like Vader's kind of a loose cannon when it comes to this kind of stuff. When it comes to hunting Jedi, and it's just like there's the bureaucracy of it where he's not gonna care about it. Like the same way Anakin didn't care about the politics of the Jedi. You know, and it's like now it's just funny that where it's like now it's like Vader just still has to deal with politics.
Yeah, he's like, ugh.
It's like the one thing he just hated about being a Jedi.
Right, he just wanted to cut through. He just wanted to cut through red tape, right, and just like get things done. That was his like whole thing. And now he has to deal with red tape, more red tape constantly. Having to deal with it's just so funny.
But yeah, she's obviously just like Kenobi bait right now. Like they don't really care about her. It's not about like her being captured. It's about 100%. Getting Kenobi. Yeah.
So we get this, like I said, this cool shot of Tala ship landing. I just love this like hangar bay that they have. Although the shot of them of the ship landing has no people around, and it's like I think that's intentional because I think that's from a CG shot, and they're just like it's all CG, so it's just easy if you just don't put people in it. Right. So that kind of irks me a little bit, but. Anyway, she's walking through this hangar bay, and I just love shiny floors and like the Imperial infrastructure. It's just like super cool to see all these people. Like, where are these people going? Like, like they're just going? Everyone's going left and right. Anyway, so that she gets up to that big red gate, and then she has to like. This is also a classic Star Wars thing where you have someone being like, papers, please, basically, right?
Seeing if the credentials work. It's always all the same in like Rebels where they like make their fake credentials and they're sweating to see if it works. But...
Yes, and then it's like, oh, it seems to check out. It's like, they're old codes, sir, but they're good.
I do love in this too, though. It's just again that like typical Imperial like hierarchy.
So where, like, easy to manipulate.
So easy. It's just like because they're all so scared of their upper commanders and people ahead of them and never wanting to question people because it's like, oh, like, who are you to question me? Like, I'll kill you.
They're
like,
all stabbing each other in the back, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
exactly, which is like terrible for your security.
Yeah, if you step on the wrong toes, then, you could end up being either shipped off to some terrible planet never seen again, or just murdered and
Or
with
like
no
you
recourse.
exactly, if you ask the wrong question, you're just gonna get force choked and
Yeah,
like
right.
it's like, oh, like you're really gonna tell like I have, important basically news basically for Vader or whatever. It's like it's
Right.
none of your business why I'm here.
So yeah, so she's just like, listen, I have intel. It works. I like that scene. This is like one of those moments where like there is
Oh
some
yeah.
stakes, right? I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But she gets through, and then they're kind of doing the whole. This is also classic Star Wars stuff where you have the someone undercover in the Imperial installation, and they've got a little communicator, and
Whispering.
you got to be able to turn. Like, how is it that you can't turn it off? Like,
I was just gonna say that. I'm like, how do they not have like earpieces yet? Where it's just like
yeah,
you have
well,
all this other like crazy high tech stuff, but you're still gonna use this like massive communicator that you have to like. It's like a walkie talkie. You're just using
so
a really
loud. Yeah,
loud
it's
walkie
so
talkie.
loud that people around the corner can hear it.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Yeah. So by the way, the communicator, same communicator from episode 4, by the way. The original, very original, kind of like white thing. Still very cool to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So we get a shot of Obi-Wan swimming in. He's using this like the same like
I
breather
loved
thing
it.
that they use in like episode 1 with Qui-Gon. Pretty
Yeah, I
cool.
love that. I was like, oh, that's like when they're swimming to was it Utaganga?
Yeah, the Gungan city. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, so cool.
There's
Yeah, I
always a
like
bigger
that.
fish. So I there's that really disgusting sea urchin thing that's like on the wall. That's really
I
cool.
know. It looked like a little, almost like a little sarlacc, but a little like water
Yes.
sarlacc kind of.
Yeah.
That's what I thought the same thing. I was like, ooh, look at that thing. I'm like, it's like a little water
I
sarlacc.
also love the color of the water is like more green, which is again
Yes,
also
yeah.
true to the video game. It's like I think this is like a freshwater ocean. It seems like
Ew.
maybe potentially.
Yeah.
So he gets let in and ambushes a stormtrooper, and then he gets this classic line, "I'm in," which is always cool, no matter what
were
scenario it's
you
being used in.
were you disappointed that he didn't take all the
Yeah,
armor and put it
yeah,
on?
because that's like it seemed like
Yeah.
it was set up to be like, okay, there's like the pull
Yeah.
the stormtrooper off screen, knock him out. You're the rustling and the like sound of
Yeah.
them being knocked out, and then you hear a splash because I guess he throws him into
Into the water, yeah.
just kills him, just murders him. He's like, he just knocks him out and then throws him into drown. But like, yeah, he should have totally taken the stormtrooper
Yeah.
armor. But I don't.
we
And
could
they
have seen
haven't really
Obi-Wan
been doing that lately. Even in Bad Batch, they didn't do that, and it's like frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like maybe they just don't want to overuse it.
I mean,
But
they
at the
certainly
same time,
did
like
in Rebels. It's like
yes, they did all the
every
time.
single time. Yeah.
I know. I was like kind of hoping for like full Stormtrooper Obi-Wan,
Yeah,
mostly
that
just
would
to
have been
get like
awesome.
mostly just for a figure of it to come out later. But
Yeah, right. 100%.
yeah,
So he gets in, and then we cut back to Reva, and now she's trying to extract the knowledge from Leia with the Force, but she's too strong. And then there's this cool line: "The braver you seem, the more afraid you are." And we learn a little bit more about kind of some of Reva's history. She says that she used to have a droid too, and that it was taken from her just like everything else. She's obviously very bitter. There's some specific event that happened in her life that we don't know the specifics of, but is still eating away at her, right? And I would love to. I think I have to imagine we'll get to know more about that before the end of this series, and I think Reva.
I
dies
would
before the
assume
end of
so.
this
They're
series,
not.
so.
They're building it up too much for them to not just like tell us what happened to her. So
Yeah, 100%.
it's
100%.
yeah.
So I don't really know. It's like so this bit of the scene happens so that she can plant the tracker in Lola, but I don't really understand what Leia's plan was with Lola here anyway. Like it just kind of seemed like I'm like, what
just,
was like
flies at her?
Yeah. What was gonna happen?
Yeah,
Like, is she gonna like zap her or something?
Knock her out? Maybe she has little zappers like how like R2 does.
Right.
You never know, but it's kind of that like little kid thing though too, right? Where it's like, I don't know.
You can try. It's like
her
this is my
little,
only move. Yeah. I guess.
yeah, it's like her little protector kind of thing. So it's sweet, but I thought it was gonna get broken again, but I guess not. So
yeah, I guess the reason why we know why she would have
Yeah.
broken it if it wasn't for. Yeah.
yes.
So Tala gets caught at the wrong station, loses comms with Obi-Wan for a short time, while he's trying to avoid seeker droids. I really like the cool little map of the facility she has on her station that they show us. I think that's really cool. We really get to see functional displays in Star Wars. Things
Yeah,
that
that's
it's
true.
always blinkers and lights and knobs and and like switches and stuff. It's never clear exactly what those things do, and like the screens are often like some like wavy line or something. It's like I don't know what that's supposed to be, but in this case, it's very clear. It's a map and it shows where the secret
Right.
droids are. Okay, cool. So you get this scene where he's hiding from stormtroopers, and then she gets the communicator back, and then the stormtroopers are like, "Oh, what was that?" Right? And then he uses the Force. Obi-Wan uses the Force to like knock something over like around the corner, and that's enough to like for him to sneak by, which is the same exact move he uses on the Death Star in Episode 4. So
hey, he knows it works. So
yeah. And the thing that's so funny about that is like in Episode 4, after he does it, it's right before he scoots around the side of that thing to turn off the shield generator, or the tractor beam generator, I think it is. And he does that like little in McGinnis or whatever. He does this like little like tiptoe little. It's so dainty the way he moves around, and I was really hoping that Obi-Wan, like Ewan McGregor, would do this kind of like the same kind of like dainty little tiptoe out of his little hiding spot, but he didn't.
Oh yeah.
Missed opportunity.
No.
Yeah. Alec Guinness, that's the name I was looking for. I said McGinnis.
Yes.
That's not right. Anyway, so any thoughts on any of this stuff?
Yeah, no, I kind of had the same feelings that we discussed about just the funny things about like a communicator that she's sitting there like whispering in. I'm like, that looks weird. Like that looks super sus.
Oh yeah, when she's like, "What are they hiding in here?" And that guy's like,
yeah, it's like, okay,
what
like,
do you mean? Are you not work here?
Two seats down from you, just like looking at you.
Yeah.
It's just funny, and it's like this is again kind of what we said before about it's all just a little bit too convenient, a little bit too quick. I mean, I'm not upset about it. I'm really not.
It's just classic Star Wars stuff, and I'm fine with it. Like it's cliche for a reason, but
yeah,
I would like a little bit more zest. It's like, okay, we get the basic formula here, but we're just kind of recycling a lot of the same things we already know. I would like do that, but then do it with a twist. That's what gets people excited. Now, one of the things that people have been calling out, I don't know if you've noticed this, but one of the things that someone said they noticed was that each episode of Obi-Wan is a reflection of the episodes of the main Skywalker saga. So Episode 1 features a desert planet and a girl getting kidnapped. Then there's Episode 2. It's got like the neon lights and I don't remember all the exact connections. In Episode 3 features obviously a Vader and Anakin fight. Anakin and Obi-Wan fight with someone being dragged through some fire. And then Episode 4 here features
sneaking around a compound.
Sneaking around a compound, just like this Death Star.
Okay.
Right?
Honestly, that doesn't
rescuing
bug me.
Leia.
I kind of like that. Yeah, I was like, I kind of like that. That doesn't really bug me.
No, that part doesn't bug me because that is like it's very subtle. It's not obvious. It's not in your face.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Like
I was like, well, that means then the next episode it's gonna be
the Empire
nothing good.
Back.
Yeah, nothing good for the good guys. And
100%. So that's I think really cool. But I mean more like on a micro scale. Like we're dealing with these individual elements, right? Like the scene where he distracts the guards is exactly the same as it plays out in Episode 4. Just let's do a little bit of a twist here. Like it's literally the same almost to a T. So a little bit more nuance, I think, or variation would be on a theme would be good. So Leia gets taken to the torture chair. And she says, "Time to make those tears real," right? And there's the other line earlier. The only person that can save you now, Leia, is you. And it seems like the kind of the common sentiment around that line is that she's really talking about herself,
right?
Or at least that was that's what she learned to believe after Obi-Wan let her down, or whatever happened to make her so angry, right? So she's taken to this torture chair, and the room where the torture chair is a recreation of the same room from the video game. So that's really cool. I didn't notice that at first, but then I saw some people talking about that online. So I thought that was awesome.
I didn't notice that either.
So Obi-Wan finds a secure sector, and this awesome line. He says, "This place isn't a fortress; it's a tomb." And we see, which of course, by the way, is a very similar line to I think Indiana Jones, where they say it's a tomb.
Okay.
And so we see all these Jedi, and they look like they're alive, but I guess they're dead, but like in suspended animation.
Yeah,
It's
I'm so confused.
unclear.
This was one of like my like the coolest scenes in it. I was like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
this is
awesome.
like
Obviously, yeah.
really cool." And like obviously I'm just like trying to figure out who these people are and like I don't know if we're not supposed to know who any of them are, but I didn't catch any that I specifically
Yeah, so
knew,
I
but
I know one of them is more widely known. It's more obvious, and it's the one that's like right in front of our face. So I quickly Googled it. I went to the Screen Rant website. So, the main one, I think the only one that has an obvious name is Terra Sanub or Terra Sanube, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Um,
okay.
and this is a character, an elderly Kosian who debuted in the Clone Wars as a friend and mentor to Ahsoka. When the Padawan lost her lightsaber in Coruscant's underworld, Sanub was a kindly Jedi with a quirky sense of humor who was happy to help Ahsoka Tano, recover her weapon and impart lessons of patience and deduction to the Padawan.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Despite his
I'm just
wisdom and skill in
looking
battle,
at the
Sunube was killed at some point during the Jedi Purge, and his body clearly shown among the Jedi corpses in the Fortress Inquisitorius. Now,
Well,
the other thing
and
that's
that's
cool
something that
about
I'm
the
curious about. Like, are they dead or are they like frozen? Because
I
they have all sorts of weird
I think they're dead.
ways of. They're dead.
I think they're
Okay,
dead, but they're
but
also frozen. I think they're both
because
true.
when they showed the last one, the little like Padawan in
Yeah, he's
training
like,
kid with his little helmet, he's scared. Like it looks like he's screaming. So I'm like, how did you pose him like that? Because that's
yeah, it
fucked up.
seems to me like that one's weird because it's like he's still wearing his outfit from like the Jedi Temple, and it's like
Yeah.
so you already had this whole system in place where you're gonna take these bodies and put them into suspended animation, and again, presumably they're already dead, right? So that I think
Right. Yes.
that's interesting. The other thing that in terms of connections to other parts of Star Wars, in Rebels, they use the body of a Jedi, the Inquisitors do, as a
Right.
trap, right?
Yes. Of they used Luminara and Dooley
Yes,
to lure
yes,
Ezra and Kanan. Yeah. See, yeah. I don't know. And like some of these ones looked really cool. Like there's one that kind of looks like a samurai almost, like
yeah,
his I don't know what you'd call it. It's like a big puffy coat almost, but it looks like a samurai coat or something. So
yeah.
I was like, all of
There's
them
some,
look so cool. So I'm like, man, I want to know who all these people are now.
yeah. They all have the clothes look really cool. They all look very
Mm-hmm.
cool to me.
Yeah. So,
But
but
yeah, I
I
think
mean,
the
yeah, and
only
we
one that
know.
we
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was gonna say, and we know that like the Empire does weird shit like this, and like, does it have something to do with cloning? Does it have something to do with trying to keep like metachlorians, or because we know the Empire gets into some, especially the Emperor Palpatine gets into some weird cloning stuff later on. So,
Yeah,
is this the start of needing that kind of thing, or
yeah, that's a good question. I don't. Maybe is the answer to that. The
yeah,
other location that would have need of Jedi for cloning would be Mount Tantus, which we see at the end of the Bad Batch season 1, which is where the cloning program seems to be because that's where they take the Kaminoans.
right, yeah,
So I don't know, but it's either that or their trophies. And apparently also there's
ew,
in the like council room where all the Inquisitors meet. Apparently there's a bunch of like lightsabers in that room. Although I didn't really notice it.
okay,
I saw someone calling that out online as well. Presumably of all the Jedi they've killed. So yeah, that's fun.
yeah, no,
In
but
a
I like
way.
the scene. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's pretty. And obviously, like the look on his face too, like he's horrified when he sees this. He's just broken when he sees these
Oh
Jedi
yeah.
being, like
I
that's
would have
not
liked
you don't want to
to.
see. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to
I
be
don't know.
hard for him.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think if this episode had slowed things down a little bit, a moment for him to reflect or to even say to say Sanub like to call him by his name, like if he recognizes him, like this is a
Yeah,
person that
yeah.
Obi-Wan's interacted with before, like take a moment to like reflect for a second. But no, it's like next thing we know is we hear Leia screaming,
Yes, yeah.
and I just pronounced it like what's his name does in episode 4, Leah.
Yeah.
Alderaan.
Yeah.
um. Anyway, so Obi-Wan needs a distraction, right? Another classic Star Wars move, right? And so and I actually thought this was kind of cool because I wasn't sure what the distraction was going to be. So we see that like um she's flipping on all the switches, and she's gonna start torturing Leia. And then someone comes in and asks to speak with Riva, right? And it's like right at the right moment. I'm like, oh, it's like I'm told it can't wait, right? It's like, oh, okay, that's cool, right? So it turns out what she did was go to someone who's important, and say, hey, I need to speak with this person immediately. I have very important information, right? Which instead of like blowing something up or something else, I think that's a fun, cool, more subtle distraction. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. And it's like that. This is the point where I thought she was gonna die, because I was.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I was like, Riva's gonna she's gonna know, she's gonna call her out right away, and she kind of starts, and when she gets to her, she starts interrogating her a little bit, and I literally thought she was gonna die here, but.
Well, like I said, that might have actually been satisfying in its own way, but instead we didn't get that. She talks her way out of it a little bit to some degree, right? So she talks about how she knows where the path is. She says it's on Florum, so she is lying there, right? Florum, of course, by the way, the planet where Hondo Ohnaka's gang lives. So that's a little call out to that.
Pirate Island.
Yeah, and a planet that Obi-Wan's been to before.
Yes,
because they've been caught there by Ohnaka. So that's fun. So they're on Florum, is what she tries to tell them. We need to go to Florum right away. And Riva doesn't believe her at first. I like the line, I do like a good liar. I don't know if you're lying to me or for me. Right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you think she means by that?
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I kind of just picked it up as, whose side are you on, right? Are you lying to me about this, or were you undercover lying for me to get this information, right? Because then afterwards she basically says she's like, yeah, I was a spy, but on the other side, I was spying for you, kind of thing,
right?
Into their ranks, but I couldn't tell you, and I couldn't, give away my position or whatever. But
yeah, I think for me, the way that I interpret that is, it's like you mentioned it before, this way that the hierarchy of the Empire is built on fear and and discipline, right? So when she says lying for me, it implies that maybe she thinks that by providing this false information, it's like she's like, oh, I'm giving them good information, this is something that will get me a promotion or whatever, right?
I see.
And as opposed to lying to me about this information to try to just to get one over on me. So I think that's interesting.
Okay, yeah.
So, but she's like, we'll find out. Take her to. I think she takes it. It's like, tell her to take her to interrogation, and then the alarm goes off. The classic Star Wars alarm goes off, and Riva leaves, and this is where I was like, ugh. So because she'd already killed or taken out one Imperial officer in this episode. And now, and got through that checkpoint, and now she takes out two stormtroopers in kind of a lame way. It's not the coolest escape, I'll be honest.
Right? Yeah, she just kind of punches them around a little bit, and
and then shoots them. Yeah,
shoots them. Yeah.
And so we get this, and then we cut back to Obi-Wan, and we get this sick stealth scene with Obi-Wan lighting up his lightsaber.
Scene.
Oh, it's super.
This was my favorite scene. It's so dark, and then he just turns it on and kills one stormtrooper, turns it back off. I'm like, this is how I like seeing lightsabers used.
Yeah, they're literally made of light, so let's use them in an interesting way, right? Visually, and it's awesome. I have no notes. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it looked so cool. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then obviously Leia's excited because she thought he was dead and he's not. So you gotta love those reuniting moments.
So Obi-Wan and Leia are making their escape. Obi-Wan has to take on a bunch of stormtroopers. He's deflecting blaster bolts. He's taking out people left and right. He takes out two stormtroopers, and he does his little saber spin move that he does. So he's feeling himself again a little bit. He's like he's back in the groove. And then at one point he deflects a bolt into a window, and it's like you got to think that these windows would be blaster bolt proof.
You would think. Maybe the velocity off of a lightsaber. I don't know.
Maybe
added to it. Who knows?
Hard to say. But so he deflects a bolt into a window. You would think.
Yeah.
And this obviously also very similar to a scene from the video game where in your Fortress Inquisitorius, you use it to escape Vader. So
yes,
that's kind of cool. And we get to see, I don't think this is the first time in the episode we get to see it, but I'll just call it out here. We get to see the first live action version of a Purge trooper, also from the video game. There's those black troopers with the red trim. Very cool. What did you think of this little action sequence here?
Oh, like I said, I loved him taking out those stormtroopers and, getting her off that torture machine. And then, this kind of action is very this is more like Clone Wars Kenobi, right? Like this is kind of who we remember. So I feel like we're starting to see him get his footing a little bit better, because even this Kenobi is fighting better than he was against Vader.
Well, yeah.
Because I don't think he has that fear. He doesn't have that shock. It's a little bit different. Those emotions aren't involved in it this time. But I did like the added element of that, like blaster bolt to the window, and then you're like, oh, okay, like I kind of see what he's gonna do here. But
and he's holding it. He's like holding it so it doesn't break. And which is cool because he couldn't even move a little thingamajig earlier. I'm wondering, is it Leia in danger that motivates him to kind of
think so.
Grasp the Force, because that's the first. Because when Leia falls off that roof that first time, that's the first time he uses the Force. We see.
Yes.
And so this time again, she's in danger. So now he has to kind of like,
that's
put
what
aside
I mean. It's
his fears.
He has that motivation, and it's like, okay, like you can push all that aside, and that it's different. You're fighting for something this time instead of trying to fight against Vader, which is like really hard for him, I think. So.
Yeah, this obviously leads us towards a closer to the original Obi-Wan type character that we know, which should set up a better, more climactic finale with Vader, in theory.
Right? Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so they make their way back to the ship after flooding that chamber and murdering all those stormtroopers. I thought pretty good. I saw people complaining about the CG of the water. I thought it looked good.
Oh, I thought it looked fine. Yeah. I saw no issue with it.
Yeah, nitpickers out there, I guess.
Yeah.
And so they put on a disguise and make their way back to their ship. And I gotta say, this long coat with Leia like
so funny,
like under his arm is like this. It's so stupid looking. I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's funny too because it's kind of like. It reminds me of a character, Mr. Business from BoJack Horseman, which is just three children in a trench coat.
Oh, okay.
and
I can't. Every time I hear the term Mr. Business, I'm pretty sure that's the name of a cat in Bob's Burgers.
Oh, really?
It's like their auntie's cat is named Mr. Business, and like anytime I hear that, it just makes me think of a cat, and I'm like, that's just the best name for a cat.
Well, I'm trying to you think the first it's ridiculous on its face because they're walking with so many people.
Yes,
and no one seems to that one droid seems to notice, which I think is kind of funny.
Is it the mouse droid again?
No, there's like a astromech style, like R2 style droid.
Oh yes, I love when they have like the evil ones that are all black and it's it's evil R2.
Yeah,
because for whatever reason the cool. Empire can't just have like normal looking R2 units like everybody else. There's always just have to be like painted black to match all their all their other creepy things.
Yes,
but, I love this scene too because obviously they do it on purpose, but especially when I see Obi-Wan in like an Imperial officer uniform like that, it always just looks like someone pretending to be like a Nazi. Because that's just like how these uniforms look. They're supposed to look kind of like that.
Well, he just looks so silly in that. He just like the hat doesn't fit right.
And he's got this scruffy beard. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't let Imperial officers have beards. I just don't think that's something that they would
I think
allow.
If you're an officer, I think you can have a beard. But
I feel like there would be clean cut though. I feel like in the Empire you wouldn't look because Obi-Wan looks scruffy. Like he just does.
It would for sure be more put together. But I mean. That's not even the biggest issue. It's that he has a fucking kid under his trench coat. And it looks stupid. It looks completely. It's so I don't even know how to. Like, I'm really having a hard time justifying this in my brain. Like, I really can't figure it out.
To me, it didn't bother me that much. I thought it was kind of cute. And again, it's just sort of that thing of Imperial officers are just they're really kind of blind. Like they see them with a high ranking female officer and they're like whatever, they don't even look at them, they don't even give them a second glance. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just like that same thing, whereas if this were like a rebel camp where people don't all look the same and you're not just supposed to keep your nose down and work, it's, you
Someone might
notice things.
notice an
Yeah.
actual child in a
Yeah.
trench coat. So yeah, I can see that
Yeah.
too. I can get behind that explanation. It's just like there's so many other more kind of fun ways you could have done it. I just feel like this is such a
Yeah, like how else are they
low
gonna get her out of
rent.
there? Other
Yeah,
than
I
like
don't know.
Obi-Wan picking her up and doing like what is it? Was it from episode 1 where they do the fast running?
Oh
Him
yeah,
and
right.
Qui-Gon?
Never seen again. Right? You should have used that move.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's seen
force
a
speed.
couple times, but yeah, I feel like they don't use it because they're like, "Ooh, maybe we shouldn't use that
It's a little
again."
OP. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
It's a little world breaking if the
yeah.
Jedi could always warp speed run away from things.
Right. Um then we get this cool like a traitor, right? Which is reminds me of episode 7 when there's that stormtrooper that calls Finn a traitor in a very
Right,
similar
yeah.
way. And they're like an old man and a child, right? Was that really worth it? It's like, oh, you just named the two most vulnerable people in society. Okay. Um, I
Yeah.
don't think you're making the point you
Again.
think you're making here.
Yeah.
So
They're bad guys, okay?
yeah, and anyway, she's like, this was never who I was. Tala says, which I think is actually a cool line.
Yes.
I actually
yeah.
I really find her interesting as a character because they mentioned it last week. She's like, listen, by the time I figured out what the Empire was doing, it was too late. I was like too
Right.
deep into it. So
Yeah,
she
yeah.
decided to like pivot and kind of instead spy on them and work against them from inside the machine, which you got to have those people, you know?
Oh yeah, I like that. And I like that kind of character that gets turned. It's kind of like Callus in Rebels.
Yes, I was gonna reference Callus. Yes.
Yeah, where it's like they realize halfway through when they're too deep in it that this isn't what you want to do and that's not who you are. And then,
Right.
all it takes is meeting some good people and meeting some people, some rebels to get you out of that and to get you
Right.
into something better. So, but you can still use the bad things you've done and your ranking to now help instead.
Right.
So,
yes, 100%, 100%. Okay, so they have this little action scene where they're running around. Obi-Wan's blasting people for some reason. We talked about this at the top.
I know. Should have done both.
Yeah, I mean, both or the lightsabers, preferably. It's come on, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So they get rescued by the speeders. They come in, right? And they blast shit, and they land. It doesn't seem like they're the type of ship that would have room for 2 extra people in it.
It doesn't, no, but
I guess don't they have like I guess there's a rear gunner, I think, right? So maybe you can put Leia on your lap and sit in the back seat.
yeah, I guess so.
So they escape into the speeder, and Wade holds off Reva, but is killed by Reva when she like throws an explosive at him. But have you ever like it was weird because like the way that he comes in, he like speeds in and like puts on his brakes, his like air brakes, and like stands there and like shoots at her from like a stationary position. I've never really seen ships of that type used in that way. I've seen maybe like you see like Slave 1 maybe used in that way where like kind of hovering and shooting.
Oh,
or
like
other
hovering.
Ships like that.
Yeah, I kind of like that though. But I feel like we've seen, and I know maybe not live action, but like Ghost does that,
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those
I've never
ships
seen
can do that
ship do it before, and that's why it felt weird to me.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But
yeah. Anyway, so this is by the way I was talking before. I didn't love the fully CG look that they were. I didn't love the escape, and I did like the logistics of it, and I just thought the ships looked a little cheap. So from a CG standpoint, minor nitpick, but I thought the water looked better than these ships did, in my opinion.
Yeah, they didn't bug me, to be honest, but I'm less nitpicky about that. But you tend to notice CG a little bit more than I do, so
I just
you have a better eye for it.
Yeah. So we coming up to the end of the episode here, Vader storms in. He is pissed, right?
As usual.
Yeah. Oh, when isn't he pissed, right? He's choking out Reva, and she. And like, by the way, I had no idea that she said "I let them go" until I turned on the subtitles for my rewatch, because she basically just gurgles a sound, and that's enough for Vader to be satisfied.
For him to let her go and speak. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she says she put a tracker on the ship, and then you get the cool. Anytime Vader says, "It seems I have underestimated you," right?
Yeah.
Is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And
And as soon as she said that she put a tracker, I was like, it's in Lola. Like
yeah,
I
hundred
just
percent,
yeah. It's like, yeah,
100%, me
okay, that
too.
makes sense. It's definitely in her.
What did you make of this scene? I guess like the other Inquisitors are still kind of like, "Hey, she messed up. You got to be mad at her," you know?
Yeah, it's like kill her already. I know.
Right.
I think they're just waiting for Vader to kill her. Like that's just their especially though it's a fifth brother. They're like
Yes.
he's just gunning for her to be dead by
Do
Vader's hand. So
you think that? I guess two things. Do you think that Vader is the one that kills Reva in this, or is it Obi-Wan?
ooh. Um yeah, I don't know. I can see that happening, absolutely. But I can also see Obi-Wan killing her. I think it's either going to be Obi-Wan or Vader, and I'm sure that's probably very obvious to everybody. But
Right.
I don't see her having one of those like arcs where she becomes a good guy. I can't see that happening this time.
Mm-hmm. I think
And
she's too
I
far
kind
gone
of
for
hope,
that.
yeah, and I kind of hope it doesn't. Like, it's kind of the same old trope where it's like, are they a bad guy that's going to eventually be a good guy? And it's like, well, we don't want that every time though. Like, sometimes I just want villains to be villains and to stay villains, and you know, something like that. But yeah, if I had to guess, I'm going to say Vader. It probably kills her, but
Right. Yep. No,
yeah,
that's fair.
because maybe Obi-Wan injures her or something, and then, you know, yeah, we'll see. But it's probably going to be Vader.
Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. Um, and okay, so they let her go. He seems convinced that the tracker will stay with them, and I think that's a fair assessment on her
Right.
part.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So Obi-Wan and everyone gets back to the rescue ship, and there's this sad moment because they lost Wade. And Tala has this line: "I guess you are soldiers now, after all."
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that's a bummer line.
yeah, it is.
Where it's like, oh, you
It
have to
really is.
experience your friends dying to be a real soldier, and it's like, ah, man, that
That's
sucks. But
correct.
like, that is the reality of it, right? Like, but it's yeah, it's definitely sad, and like, it's not sad in a way of like I didn't care about that character, but that act is it actress, I
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
she does
Yep.
a good job of like really showing that emotion with how quiet she is and how like obviously visibly upset she is. And it's like, yeah, it's like that's what the whole rebellion is right now. It's a lot
Yeah.
of loss right now. It's a lot of just hiding and running, and it's not a lot of winning at this point. So I think it just kind of shows you how hard it really is to get this rebellion going because of how much people are losing each other. So
Right. No, 100%. Um, the rebellion at this point is like in a state of it's all disconnected, right? Like
yes,
these guys
exactly.
aren't working with other people
No.
really. They're just kind of doing their own thing. So there is going to be, when you're like that, it's going to be a lot of crappy moments, and we see that in Rebels, which is why more people should watch Rebels. I would really love it if they just redesign, like just redo the whole thing in the Clone Wars style. That would be ideal.
Oh,
Thank
I
you very
see. You
much.
mean just
Thank you.
fatten up the lightsabers a little bit?
I'm just like, well, everything looks not as good. Like the way that the final season of Clone Wars and Bad Batch looks, I think because of how important a story Rebels is, I would love for them
That's
to just redo it.
fair. Can you redo an animated show like that so it
Hundred
looks that much
percent. Why
better?
you could get
Oh,
all the
okay. Fair
dialogues all
enough.
there? Why not? Why not? I mean, you'd have to. It wouldn't be
Yeah, I
cheap.
guess so.
You'd have to, you'd
Yeah,
have to spend
okay.
money to do it, but it could be done. Is what I'm saying. Okay, so so there's one last moment here. Leia looking at all the grief and everything that's going on
Mhm.
around her, comforts Ben holding his hand.
That made me cry.
It's very. Oh, that's what got you. Okay.
Her tiny little hand, like, grabbing his, and when she, like, not even just holds it, when she, like, pulls it closer to her,
Yeah.
is just it's such a subtle little moment. I don't know what it was about her, like, not just holding his hand, but pulling it over to her, just made it, like, so much more heart-wrenching, and I don't know, it just got me. I'm literally tearing up right now just thinking about it.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. I
It's
didn't that
just I don't know, it
that
was
did
so
not
cute.
land for me in the same way. I don't know.
I don't know why, it just got me. I think 'cause it's like, I don't know, she can see how bummed he is.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like they're both giving each other that comfort. And it's like she just wants him like closer to her. Like she just wants that comfort from him too. Like she just trusts him so much. So yeah, I just really like that. I think that's a nice little just building moment for their relationship. About it just keeps at first he was pretty frustrated with her. and then now they're just kind of like slowly getting a little more like
Yeah, they're besties now.
buds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Well, they both now kind of like, she says, "I didn't tell anything," and he's like, "I know." Right. And so I kind
Oh
of understand.
yeah.
I appreciate all this from a, like an intellectual standpoint, but for whatever reason, it did not hit me emotionally for some reason. Maybe on
Oh,
a
I wonder.
rewatch when I put it all together and I, didn't, wasn't
I do.
analyzing it the same way.
I didn't even think about it until right now. Do you think him saying "I know" is kind of like Han saying "I know" to her when she says "I love you"? Like later on, know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I guess so. I mean, kind of a little. That could be a, a callback to that,
Yeah,
or
I'm
it's just
kind
a
of
pretty.
curious.
It's just also just a common thing to
It,
say.
yeah, I guess so. I'm just like, oh, but Han says that to her too when
Yeah,
he says he loves her.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cute.
I
Yeah,
think
no, I'm
it could
just
100% be that, and if no one's mentioned it, then it is.
yeah.
We'll take credit for that. I don't see
Yes,
why not. Yeah. Um.
sounds good. Yeah,
So yeah, and then we see that Lola is red now, so therefore we know it's evil.
yeah.
And and then we hit 32 minutes and 30 seconds right when the credits roll, and
Mm.
yeah, it's just a very short episode. But we've been going at this now for over an hour, almost an hour and a half. Let's
Yeah,
wrap it up. Any final
sure.
thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there was a lot of really like good moments that I liked. There was like I feel like for me, the moments that I really liked made up for it not being quite as long, and it made up for the little bits of like rush that I feel. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, like I liked the episode. It definitely wasn't like my favorite so far, but but yeah, like I wouldn't give it too harsh of a criticism. So it still think leaves a lot of story to kind of tell over the next two episodes. I just hope the next two episodes are longer.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I agree with you. They have to be longer, otherwise, I think people might riot. It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said at the top, I just think that this episode was underwhelming for me. I would have liked a little bit more patience, a little bit more. The moments in between were kind of fleshed out a little bit more. These characters that we just meet,
Mhm.
a little bit more time with them would have been very worthwhile, especially if we're going to kill one.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so too.
so, but like I said at the top, there's some really cool moments inside this episode that kind of help keep it from being like extra crappy. This is hardly the worst episode of some sort of Star Wars television show we've seen.
Oh yeah, of
So,
course.
so yeah, so it's still pretty darn good. The bar is still very high. But I have very high expectations for the next two episodes.
Me too.
I wasn't let down by the first two, so hopefully they're able to replicate that for the final two. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, well, in that
We
case,
shall
then,
see.
yes, 100. I actually am very excited. I almost wish the last two episodes were like released at the same time again, and I could just
I know,
like,
hey.
just get it over with. Okay, follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast, Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast, and head over to our website, towerbabble.ca, to find everything that we do, including the flagship show, Tower Babble Podcast. And if you want to help support the show, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Babblecast, where for as little as $5 a month, you can help keep the lights on here and get some bonus content for your trouble. We do a film club every month. We just did Waterworld as our last entry in that.
Yeah.
We didn't love it. Spoilers, we didn't love it. But it was still a fun discussion. And next we're doing Boondock Saints, another cult classic from the 90s. So stay tuned for that on the Patreon. And otherwise, we'll be back next week with more Obi-Wan coverage. May the Force be with you.
All right, cool beans. Are you gonna go see Jurassic Park now?